Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the sun-scorched streets of medieval Egypt, where the Nile's gentle lapping mixes with the clamor of merchants and the scent of cumin hangs heavy in the air. Picture yourself there, dodging donkey carts, your sandals kicking up dust as you navigate a world where being a woman comes with a rule book thicker than a papyrus scroll. It's a vibrant, chaotic place. But here's the reality check. You probably won't survive this maze of social restrictions without some serious grit. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're listening from tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the heart of Cairo, sometime around the 12th century, under the Fatimid dynasty's golden reign. The city pulses with life vendors, hawk dates, and flatbreads. Minarets pierce the sky, and the call to prayer echoes over mud brick rooftops. As a woman, you're not just a bystander in this bustling world. You're a player in a game rigged against you. The air feels thick with heat and expectation, and every step you take is watched, judged, shaped by a society that sees your gender first and your humanity second. You're not free to roam as men do, but you're not invisible either. Your life is a delicate dance of obedience and defiance, woven into the fabric of a culture that both reveres and restricts you. Let's start with the basics. Your world is small, but it's vivid. You wake at dawn in a modest home, maybe a two-room affair, with a courtyard where chickens cluck and a loom waits for your hands. Your day is already mapped out not by you, but by the unspoken laws of a patriarchal society. The Fatimids who rule Egypt now are known for their cultural splendor, but their wealth doesn't trickle down to your freedom. Historical records like those from the Cairo Geniza show women were vital to family life, but rarely held power outside it. Your role is clear. Keep the household running, support your husband or father, and stay out of trouble. Trouble, though, has a way of finding you. You trudge to the market, a basket slung over your arm, your headscarf catching the breeze. The market is a sensory overload. Spices in heaps, the tang of overripe fruit, and the chatter of men haggling over everything from linen to livestock. You're here for lentils and maybe a scrap of cloth, but you feel eyes on you. Men stare, not always with malice, but with a curiosity that reminds you you're an outsider in this public sphere. You keep your gaze low, not because you're shy, but because boldness could spark gossip faster than a camel spits. And gossip, it's social poison. One wrong whisper, and your family's honor takes a hit. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women in medieval Egypt used a concoction of crocodile dung and honey as a makeshift sunscreen or contraceptive. Sounds like a spa day gone wrong, right? But it's a glimpse into how you'd innovate with what's at hand, even if it smells like a swamp. Historians still argue whether this was widespread or just a quirky outlier in medical texts. But it shows the lengths you'd go to manage your body in a world with few options. You'd mix this stuff in a clay pot, probably gagging, and apply it under the scorching sun, hoping it works better than it smells. Your home is your domain, but it's no sanctuary from scrutiny. You're expected to cook, clean, weave, and raise children, all while looking like you've got it under control. The pressure's real. If you're married, your husband might be a merchant or a scribe out all day, while you manage the chaos. If you're unmarried, your father or brother calls the shots. Either way, Your choices are limited. You might dream of haggling in the market like the men, but that's a fantasy. Instead, you barter with neighbors for eggs or swap stories to pass the time. These small acts of connection keep you sane. The streets outside hum with a rhythm you can't fully join. Men gather in mosques or coffee houses, debating theology or trade routes, while you're stuck fetching water or scrubbing pots. It's not that you're weak, far from it. You're carrying buckets heavy enough to make a mule jealous, and you're doing it in 100-degree heat. But society's rules are like invisible chains, and you learn early to work within them. You might sneak a glance at a passing poet reciting verses, wishing you could join in, but you know better than to linger. Let's lighten the mood with a quick joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian woman bring a ladder to the market? Because she heard the best deals were over the wall of gender norms. Okay, maybe not, but you get the idea. You're always climbing over obstacles. Your life is a balancing act, and every day tests your resilience. You're not just surviving, you're strategizing, finding ways to carve out meaning in a world that tries to keep you small. As the sun dips low, painting the Nile orange, you head home, your basket lighter, but your mind heavy. You've navigated another day, dodging judgment and meeting expectations. Tomorrow, you'll do it again. But for now, you steal a moment to breathe in the courtyard, the stars peeking through the date palms. This is your world, and you're learning its rules, rules you'll bend, if not break, as you go. The stars fade as dawn creeps in, and you're already back at it, stirring a pot of lentils while the household stirs to life. The rhythm of domesticity pulls you forward, a current you can't escape. Your hands move automatically, but your mind wanders, wondering what it means to be you in this tightly woven web of family and duty. You're up before the sun, the air still cool, as you kneel by a clay oven, coaxing embers to life in your family's modest Cairo home. The scent of baking bread mingles with the faint musk of the Nile drifting through the courtyard. As a woman in medieval Egypt, your world revolves around the household, a space where you're both queen and servant, bound by expectations as rigid as the mud brick walls around you. Your hands are already dusted with flour, your scarf slipping as you knead dough, and you're painfully aware that every task, cooking, cleaning, weaving, carries the weight of keeping your family's honor intact. One burnt loaf could spark a lecture from your mother-in-law, and trust me, her tongue's sharper than a reed pen. The household is your stage, but the script's written by others. You're likely living with extended family, parents, in-laws, maybe a cousin who snores loud enough to wake a mummy. The Fatimid era, with its thriving trade and urban bustle, means your home is a hub of activity, but your role is clear. Keep everything running smoothly. Historical records like those from the Cairo Geniza show women manage domestic economies with precision, bartering surplus cloth or bread for household needs. You're not just cooking, you're budgeting, planning, and negotiating, all without stepping outside the courtyard's invisible boundaries. Your day starts with grinding grain, a task so grueling your arms ache before noon. The stone quern grates against barley, and you're sweating through your linen dress, wishing for a breeze that never comes. You mix dough-bake flatbreads and stew lentils with onions, maybe adding a pinch of cumin if you're feeling fancy. If you're lucky, there's a goat to milk, but that's another chore on your endless list. You're also weaving, always weaving, turning flax into cloth for clothes or trade. Your loom clacks rhythmically, a sound as constant as the call to prayer, and every thread you spin is a thread in the family's survival. Here's a quirky tidbit: some women use pigeon droppings as a laundry detergent, believing it whitened linens better than ash. You're probably wrinkling your nose right now, and honestly same. But when soap's scarce and you're scrubbing stains by the Nile, you'd try anything. Historians still argue whether this was a common practice or just a weird footnote in domestic manuals, but it's a reminder of your ingenuity. You're making do with what you've got, even if it smells like a birdcage. The pressure's not just physical, it's social. Everyone's watching. Your mother-in-law hovers critiquing your bread's texture like it's a royal decree. Neighbors gossip over shared walls, and a single mistake like forgetting to cover the water jar could brand you careless. Men might run the markets, but women rule the homes, reputation, and yours is on the line daily. You're expected to be virtuous, efficient, and invisible all at once. It's exhausting, but you've got tricks, a quick smile to diffuse tension, a well-timed gift of bread to a neighbor to keep the peace. Let's pause for a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian housewife hide her best spices? Because her mother-in-law had a nose like a tax collector. You've probably stashed a pinch of saffron somewhere yourself, saving it for a special dish to win some rare praise. But praise is fleeting, and the work never stops. You're also teaching your daughters or nieces the same tasks, passing down recipes and weaving techniques like sacred secrets. It's bonding, sure, but it's also a reminder that their lives will mirror your endless cycles of dough and thread. Your home's courtyard is your only slice of freedom. Here, you can laugh with other women, share stories, maybe complain about that cousin snoring. These moments are gold, but they're brief. The men in your life, father, husband, brother, set the rules. If you're married, your husband expects a hot meal when he returns from the market. If you're single, your father decides when you eat or sleep. You might dream of running your own shop, but that's as likely as a camel dancing. Most women don't inherit land or wealth, so your economic power is tied to the men around you. Still, you're not helpless. You trade extra cloth with a neighbor for eggs, or barter a basket of bread for a clay pot. These small deals are your rebellion proof. You can bend the system without breaking it. You're also the keeper of family stories, whispering tales of ancestors to your kids as you tuck them into reed mats at night. It's not glamorous, but it's power in its own way. You're the glue holding this chaotic household together, even if no one says it out loud. The sun's climbing now, and you're already halfway through your chores. You pause to sip water from a clay jug, the coolness a rare mercy. Outside the city hums merchants shouting donkeys, braying. But your world is here, in this courtyard, where every task is a test of endurance. You're not just surviving, you're mastering a role that's both prison and palace. And as you knead another batch of dough, you wonder what it'd be like to step beyond these walls to choose your own path. The dough rests, and you wipe sweat from your brow, stealing a glance at the street beyond the courtyard gate. The world out there calls to you, but it's a world where your choices shrink even further. Marriage looms like a shadow, and you brace yourself for the moment your family decides your future. You're sitting cross-legged on a woven mat in your Cairo home, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and the weight of expectation. The courtyard is quiet now, save for the clink of clay cups as your mother sips mint tea and eyes you like a merchant sizing up a deal. Marriage is coming for you, whether you're ready or not. And in medieval Egypt, it's less a choice and more a transaction sealed before you can blink. You're probably 16, maybe younger, and the idea of love is as distant as the pyramids on a foggy day. Your family's already plotting whispering names of suitors while you pretend to focus on mending a torn robe. You're not just a daughter, you're a chess piece in a game of alliances, dowries, and honor. In the Fatimid era, marriage was a cornerstone of social stability, and historical records, like the Cairo Geniza, reveal that women rarely had a say in their matches. Your parents, or maybe an uncle with a knack for deal-making, are scouring the neighborhood for a suitable groom. He might be a merchant with a decent stall, a scribe with ink-stained fingers, or fingers crossed, not that widower with a temper and 3 kids already. The goal? Secure your family status, maybe score some trade connections, and ensure you're settled before you're deemed too old. Spoiler, too old could mean 20. You're summoned to a family meeting and your stomach churns like you ate bad falafel. Your father lays out the plan of betrothal to a man you've barely met, maybe glimpsed once at a mosque courtyard. You're expected to nod and smile, but inside, you're screaming. The dowry's the real star here. Your family offers linens, jewelry, maybe a few coins, sock and coins, all to sweeten the deal. You've got no say in what's included, but you know it's your labor. Those endless hours at the loom funding this contract. A quirky tidbit. Some brides brought magical amulets to their new homes, little charms meant to ensure fertility or love. You're skeptical, but you take one anyway, just in case. Historians still argue whether these marriages were as oppressive as they sound, or if some women found ways to wield influence within them. The Janiza documents hint at both wives who were virtual prisoners and others who quietly shaped their households. Either way, your voice is barely a whisper in the process. You're told your groom is kind or respectable, but those words feel like sand in your mouth. Kind compared to what? A donkey. You bite your tongue and nod, because defiance could mean a beating, or worse, banishment to a life of shame. The wedding day looms, and you're draped in a fine dress, maybe dyed indigo if your family's got coin. The ceremonies, a blur drums ululating women, and a feast you barely taste. You're veiled not just for modesty, but to mark your transition from daughter to wife. The celebration's lively, but you feel like a prop passed from one household to another. Your new home awaits, and you're praying it's not a cramped room with a leaky roof. Your husband's face is unfamiliar, his voice gruff or shy, and you're already calculating how to navigate this stranger's world. Here's a quick joke to lighten the mood. Why did the medieval bride bring a ladder to her wedding? Easier to run away when the groom starts snoring? Okay, you're not running, but the thought crosses your mind. You're whisked to your new home, maybe a short walk across Cairo, maybe a donkey ride to another town. Your mother-in-law's already there inspecting you like you're a questionable batch of dates. Your job now is to please her, please him, and keep the household humming. You're still weaving, cooking, cleaning, but now it's for a new set of judges. Your husband might be decent, or he might treat you like furniture. Either way, you're expected to produce children fast. No pressure, but your values tied to motherhood, and every neighbor's watching. You share a bed with this man, a stranger, whose habits you're learning the hard way. Does he leave crumbs on the mat? Forget to wash his feet. You're memorizing his quirks, gauging how much freedom you can carve out. Some women, the Geniza hints, negotiated small privilege, extra market trips a say in the menu, but it's a gamble. Push too hard, and you're difficult. Play it safe, and you're invisible. You find moments to cope, stealing glances at the stars through a window, whispering dreams to yourself. Maybe you imagine a different life, one where you pick your own path. But reality bites your dowries, spent your roles set, and society's watching. You learn to charm your husband with a well-timed smile or a perfectly spiced stew. It's not love, not yet, but it's survival. You're playing the long game building trust, maybe even affection, one careful step at a time. The nights are the hardest. You lie awake, the straw mat prickling your back, wondering if this is all there is. Your husband snoring. There it is, just like the joke fills the room and you stifle a laugh. Humor's your secret weapon, a way to keep sane when the walls feel too close. You think of your mother's advice, her stories of bending the rules without breaking them. Maybe tomorrow, you'll try something bold, like slipping an extra coin from the market budget. For now, you close your eyes, the Nile's distant murmur, lulling you toward sleep. Morning breaks and you're up, slipping on your sandals to face another day. The household hums, but the city beyond calls a world of markets and mosques, where you're allowed to tread, but only on their terms. You grab your basket, adjust your scarf, and brace yourself for the scrutiny of the streets. You step onto the dusty streets of Cairo, your basket tucked under your arm, the weight of your scarf already making your neck sweat. The city's alive, merchants shout about their wares, donkeys bray, and the air hums with the chatter of men haggling over everything from saffron to sheep. As a woman in medieval Egypt, the public sphere is a minefield. You're allowed here, sure, but every step feels like you're trespassing. Eyes follow you, some curious, some judgmental, and you've learned to keep your gaze low and your pace brisk. The market's a necessity, not a playground, and you're here to buy lentils, not make a statement. Still, the energy of the crowd tugs at you, tempting you to linger just a moment longer than you should. In the Fatimid era, cities like Cairo were bustling trade hubs, and historical records show women did venture into markets, but always under scrutiny. You're not invisible, but you're not welcome to dawdle either. The streets belong to men merchants, scholars, soldiers, who move with a confidence you can only envy. Your presence is tolerated for practical reasons. Someone's got to fetch the food, the cloth, the oil for the lamps. But step out of line, laugh too loud, haggle too fiercely, and you're inviting whispers. Gossip spreads faster than Nile floods, and a woman's reputation is as fragile as a clay pot. You weave through the market, dodging carts piled high with dates and figs. The vendor's stall smells of overripe fruit and fresh bread, and you're trying to barter for a sack of barley without drawing attention. Your voice is soft but firm, a trick you've learned to sound respectful while holding your ground. The vendor, a grizzled man with a beard, like tangled reeds, eyes you suspiciously. Too expensive, you say, hoping he doesn't notice the slight tremor in your hands. Haggling's an art, but for you, it's a tightrope pushed too hard, and you're unladylike. Too soft, and you're cheated. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women carried small amulets tucked into their scarves, inscribed with protective verses to ward off the evil eye in crowded markets. You've got one yourself, a tiny scrap of papyrus wrapped in cloth, more for comfort than belief. Historians still argue whether these charms were widespread or just a superstition among the anxious, but you clutch yours when a stranger's stare lingers too long. It's a small rebellion against the eyes that track your every move, a reminder you've got some power, even if it's just in your head. The market's not the only public space you navigate. You might slip into a mosque's women's section. For prayer's a dim corner where you're separated by screens or curtains. It's a rare chance to be out, but even here you're watched. Men pray in the open courtyard, their voices rising, while you're tucked away, your devotion quiet, but no less real. You've heard stories of women sneaking into male spaces, disguised in loose robes maybe, to listen to a scholar's lecture. You're tempted, but the risk is steep. Getting caught could mean public humiliation or worse. Let's lighten things up with a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian woman avoid the market's main square? Too many guys trying to sell her genuine Sphinx souvenirs. You've dodged a few of those yourself, sidestepping pushy vendors with a polite smile. But the market's not just a hassle. It's a glimpse of the world you're barred from fully joining. You see poets reciting in shaded corners, traders boasting about voyages to Baghdad, and you ache to be part of it. Instead, you're counting coins, calculating how to stretch them for the week. Your movements are strategic. You stick to familiar paths, avoiding alleys where men loiter or where a stray glance could be misread. If you're married, your husband might expect a full report of your purchases. If you're single, your father's waiting to inspect the basket. Either way, you're under a microscope. You've learned to blend in your scarf, a shield your steps quick, but not rushed. Some women bolder than you might linger to eavesdrop on a deal or chat with a friend, but you know better. The longer you stay, the more eyes you attract. Still, there's a thrill in these outings. The market's colors, red pomegranates, golden spices, spark something in you. You catch snippets of gossip. A merchant ship sank, a neighbor's daughter eloped. These fragments are your window to the world, and you hoard them like treasures. You might even swap a quick word with another woman, a brief moment of camaraderie before you both hurry home. These connections, fleeting as they are, remind you you're not alone in this dance of dodging scrutiny. The sun's climbing, and your basket's full until's a small jug of oil, a scrap of cloth for patching. You're tired, not just from the weight, but from the mental math of staying proper. You think back to that crocodile dung sunscreen from your early days. Thankfully, you've ditched that for a plain scarf to shield your face. You're learning to navigate this world, finding ways to move through it without losing yourself. But as you head home, the streets narrow, and you feel the walls of expectation closing in again. You slip back into the courtyard, your basket lighter, but your mind buzzing with the market's chaos. The world outside is vibrant, but it's not yours, not fully. Now, as you adjust your scarf and catch your breath, you face another layer of rules, the art of modesty, where every fold of fabric carries a message. You're standing in your cramped Cairo courtyard, the morning sun already baking the mud brick walls as you adjust the heavy linen scarf draped over your head. It's not just cloth, it's a statement, a shield, a weight you carry every time you step outside. In medieval Egypt, veiling and modesty aren't optional. They're the armor you wear to navigate a world that judges you by every inch of exposed skin. You tug the fabric, trying to balance airflow with propriety, knowing one wrong fold could spark whispers faster than a market fire. The air smells of dust, and the neighbors cooking, and you're already sweating, but you've got no choice. This is the price of being a woman in public. Under the Fatimid dynasty, veiling was a widespread practice, especially for Muslim women, rooted in Islamic teachings about modesty, but shaped by local custom. The Quran's call for covering wasn't just about spirituality. It was a social contract. You're expected to drape yourself in loose flowing garments, often a headscarf and a long robe called a jilbab, that conceal your form from neck to ankle. If you're Coptic Christian, you might wear a lighter veil, but the expectations similar don't draw attention. Your clothes scream respectability, and in a city like Cairo, where everyone's watching, that's your first line of defense. You fumble with the scarf, trying to pin it without pricking your fingers. It's a skill you've honed since childhood, but it's still a hassle. The fabric's coarse, dyed a dull brown to avoid standing out, though you've seen wealthier women in silks that shimmer like the Nile at dusk. You're not so lucky. Your family's budget means linen, maybe a cheap cotton blend if the harvest was good. You've heard of women using starch to make their veils hold shape, a quirky trick to look polished without much coin. You tried it once, but it left your scarf stiff as papyrus and smelled like burnt porridge. Never again. Historians still argue whether veiling was purely oppressive or a form of agency, letting women move in public without harassment. Some say it gave you a kind of invisibility, a way to slip through crowds unnoticed. But it doesn't feel invisible when the fabric sticks to your neck in the heat, or when a shopkeeper smirks because your scarf slipped an inch. You're constantly adjusting, aware that a stray lock of hair could brand you careless or worse. The rules are strict. Cover your hair, your neck, ideally your face, though face veils are less common unless you're elite. Your goal is to blend in, to be a shadow in a man's world. Let's toss in a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian woman practice veiling in her sleep? So she'd be ready for the gossip patrol at dawn. You've felt that patrol's eyes yourself, neighbors peering over courtyard walls, ready to judge your modesty. But you've got tricks. You layer your clothes strategically loose enough to hide your shape tight enough to move freely. You've even sewn a hidden pocket into your robe for coins, or that amulet from the market, a small act of defiance against the rules that bind you. Public spaces test your modesty most. You're heading to the market again, your scarf pinned tight, but the streets are a gauntlet. Men don't just look, they stare, weighing your virtue in a glance. You keep your eyes down, but you're not meek. You're strategic. A bold stare back could invite trouble, so you focus on the rhythm of your steps, the clink of coins in your pocket. If you're lucky, you'll pass a group of women, their own scarves fluttering, and share a quick note of silent, "We're in this together." These moments are rare, but grounding, like a sip of cool water in the heat. At home, the rules loosen, but only slightly. You can let your scarf slip in the courtyard, but only if no strange men are around. Your brothers, friends, your husband's cousins, they're all potential threats to your honor. You're always on guard, even in your own space. The pressure's exhausting, and you sometimes dream of tossing the scarf into the Nile and running free. But then you remember the stakes. A ruined reputation means a ruined life. You've seen women shunned for less, their families turning them out like spoiled grain. Still, you find ways to push back. You embroider tiny patterns on your scarves, edge nothing flashy, just a swirl of thread that says, "I'm still here." Some women paint their hands with henna, a nod to beauty within the rules. You've done it too, tracing delicate vines across your fingers, a secret art only you and the other women notice. It's not much, but it's yours. You're learning to carve out identity in a world that wants you faceless, voiceless, draped in conformity. The day wears on, and you're back in the courtyard folding your scarf for tomorrow. The fabric's worn thin, a mirror of your patience. You think of those market trips, the eyes, the whispers, and you wonder how much longer you can play this game. But for now, you smooth the cloth, tuck it away, and brace for another day under its weight. The scarf rests, but your work doesn't. And as you stack clay pots in the courtyard, your mind drifts to survival beyond the home. The world outside offers a few paths to earn a living, but they're narrow, and you'll need every ounce of wit to walk them. You're crouched in the dim corner of your Cairo courtyard, the loom's rhythmic clack filling the air as you weave threads of flax into cloth that might earn you a few extra coins. The sun's climbing, and your fingers are already sore, but you're dreaming of the market where a bolt of your linen could trade for oil or a new pot. In medieval Egypt, work for women like you is rare, a narrow path squeezed between household duties and society's iron grip. You're not supposed to want more than your domestic role. But the weight of those lentils you bought yesterday reminds you a little coin could mean a little freedom. The catch: every opportunity comes with changed gender class and a whole lot of judgment. The Fatimid economy was a bustling machine, with Cairo as a trade hub connecting Africa, Europe, and Asia. Historical records like those from the Cairo Geniza show women did contribute to this economy, but only in specific limited roles. You're not running a shop or sailing to Byzantium. Your options are domestic weaving, spinning, maybe midwifery if you've got the stomach for it. If you're lucky, you might sell surplus bread or embroidery at the market, but only through a male middleman, your husband, father, or even a neighbor's son. Direct trade. That's a man's game, and you're not invited. You focus on the loom, each thread a small act of defiance. Weaving's your best bet. Every household needs cloth, and yours is good tight, even maybe with a subtle pattern if you're feeling bold. You spend hours here, the shuttle flying your back, aching as the pile of linen grows. If you're skilled, you might sell to a merchant whole hawk it in the market, but hell, take a cut and you'll smile through it, because that's the deal. Some women, the Geniza hints, ran small textile businesses from home, but only if their husbands allowed it. You're not there yet. Your husband grumbles about women's work, leaving the house, but you're saving every scrap of profit, hiding coins in that secret pocket you sewed into your robe. Here's a quirky tidbit some women used: date pits ground into paste to polish their woven cloth, giving it a sheen that fetched a better price. You've tried it smearing the sticky mess with a grimace, but it works. Your linen glints like the Nile under moonlight. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread trick or just a local quirk, but it's your little edge in a world that offers few. You're not just weaving cloth. You're weaving a plan, a way to stretch your family's budget without stepping too far out of line. The market's your only outlet, but it's a gauntlet. You can't just stroll up and haggle like the men. If you're selling, you pass your goods to a male relative, whole deal with the vendors while you wait in the shadows, hoping he doesn't pocket half the profit. If you're bold, you might slip into the women's corner of the market, where a few female vendors, usually widows, or the very poor sell bread or herbs. But even their eyes are on you. A woman working openly risks her reputation, and you've heard the whispers, "She's too forward, no wonder she's not married." You keep your head down your scarf tight, and your transactions quick. Let's lighten the mood with a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian weaver hide her best cloth? Because her husband thought profit was just a fancy word for his new robe. You've dodged that trap, tucking away a small stash of coins for emergencies. But work's not just about money, it's about survival. If you're unmarried, your father expects your labor to support the household. If you're married, your husband might demand every dirham. Either way, your earnings are rarely yours. Some women turn to midwifery, a respected but grueling job. You've considered it, but the thought of blood and screams makes you stick to your loom. Class matters as much as gender. If you're from a wealthy family, you might oversee servants who weave for you, but you're still not free. Your wealth's tied to your husband's name. If you're poor, you're spinning wool instead of flax. Your hands rougher, your profits slimmer. The poorest women beg or sell trinkets, but that's a last resort, a step away from shame. You're somewhere in the middle, scraping by your loom, your lifeline. You've heard of women who became singers or dancers, but that's a risky path admired by some, scorned by others. You'd rather stay safe, even if it means endless hours at the loom. You pause to stretch your fingers, cramped, and glance at the courtyard gate. The world beyond tempts you, a world of trade and possibility, but it's not built for you. Still, you're finding ways to bend the rules, like slipping an extra yard of cloth into a trade or bartering with a neighbor for her surplus eggs. These small acts are your rebellion proof you're more than a shadow in a man's economy. As the sun dips, you fold your latest piece of linen, its sheen catching the light. It's not much, but it's yours, and you'll carry it to the market tomorrow, hoping for a deal that feels like a win. The linen's folded your coins tucked away, but the weight of the day lingers as you prepare for evening prayers. Religion shapes your world as much as work, pulling you into a web of rituals and rules that both comfort and confine you. You kneel on a woven mat in the women's corner of a Cairo mosque, the air cool and heavy with the scent of incense and polished stone. The call to prayer still hums in your ears, a melody that pulls you from the chaos of the day into this quiet, sacred space. As a woman in medieval Egypt, religion is just faith. It's a framework that shapes every move you make, from the way you dress to the way you speak. Whether you're Muslim or Coptic Christian, the rules are clear. Your spiritual life is vital, but it's confined to specific spaces, specific roles. You adjust your scarf, feeling the weight of expectation as you bow your head, whispering prayers under the watchful eyes of tradition. In the Fatimid era, Islam was the dominant faith, but Egypt's Coptic Christian community thrived under relative tolerance. Historical records, like those from the Cairo Geniza, show women actively participated in religious life. Muslim women praying in mosques, Coptic women attending church, but always within boundaries. As a Muslim, you're expected to pray 5 times daily, often at home, though you can join the women's section of the mosque for Friday prayers. If you're Coptic, you attend church, clutching a wooden cross your prayers in a language that feels ancient even to you. Either way, your faith is a refuge, but it's also a rule book dictating modesty, obedience, and your place in the world. You're in the mosque, now tucked behind a wooden screen that separates you from the men's expansive courtyard. The imam's voice carries, but you strain to hear your view, blocked by latticework that feels like a cage. You've learned to find peace here in the rhythm of prayer, the soft rustle of other women's robes as they kneel beside you. But there's a catch. Your presence is tolerated, not celebrated. Men lead the prayers. Men teach the Quran. Men decide what's holy. You're here to worship, not to question. And you felt the sting of a sidelong glance when you lingered too long after prayers. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Muslim women used rosewater to purify their hands. Before prayer, a fragrant ritual that doubled as a status symbol. You've tried it, splashing the sweet liquid from a tiny vial, feeling briefly fancy despite your worn linen dress. Historians still argue whether this was widespread or just a perk for the wealthy. But it's a small luxury. You savor a moment of grace in a world of rules. You tuck the vial back into your robe, next to that market amulet, and smile to secrets, keeping you grounded. Your faith shapes more than prayer. If your Muslim Ramadan means fasting from dawn to dusk, and you're juggling cooking for the pre-dawn meal while your stomach growls. If you're Coptic, you're fasting for Lent, avoiding meat and dairy while still feeding your family. Either way, you're the one making it work, stirring pots, soothing hungry kids, all while keeping your own hunger quiet. Religious festivals offer a break like Eid al-Fitr's feasts or Coptic Easter's vibrant processions. But even these come with expectations. You're serving food, not leading prayers, and you're always under scrutiny to be pious, modest, proper. Let's pause for a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian woman pray so quietly? Because she didn't want to wake the imam's ego. You've stifled a giggle yourself, whispering prayers while the men's voices boom. But faith isn't just duty, it's connection. You share stories with other women in the mosque or church, swapping tips on surviving the fast or soothing a teething child. These moments, hushed and fleeting, are your lifeline. A reminder you're not alone in this tightly scripted life. If you're Muslim, you might dream of studying the Quran deeper. But formal religious education is for men scholars debating in madrasas while you're stuck memorizing verses at home. If you're Coptic, you might know a nun who reads scripture, but that path's rare and not for you. You've heard of women mystics like the Sufi, Saint Rabia al-Adawiyya, who defied norms with her poetry and piety. You're no saint, but her story sparks something in you, a wish to speak your faith, not just live it. For now, you settle for teaching your children prayers, passing down what you know in the courtyard's quiet hours. The rules can chafe. You're expected to embody virtue, but men define what that means. A missed prayer, a slipped scarf, and suddenly you're less pious. You've seen women shunned for questioning too loudly, their faith twisted against them. Still, you find ways to push back. You linger after prayers, listening to the imam's words through the screen, piecing together meaning. You whisper your own prayers at night, raw and unscripted, asking for strength to navigate this world. It's not rebellion, not exactly. It's survival, with a spark of defiance. As you rise from prayer, your scarf catching on a rough edge of the mat, you feel the mosque's cool air fade. The world outside waits with its markets and chores. But here, for a moment, you've claimed a piece of something bigger. You slip out, blending into the crowd, your faith a quiet fire that no screen can dim. The mosque's peace lingers as you step back into the sun, your scarf snug against your shoulders. But the world outside pulls you toward another challenge, knowledge, a treasure you crave but can rarely touch. You clutch your basket and head home, wondering what it would be like to learn beyond the courtyard's walls. You're sitting in the shade of your Cairo courtyard, a clay tablet balanced on your knee, tracing shapes in the dust with a reed stylus. The air hums with the distant buzz of the city, but your mind's elsewhere, chasing a dream of knowledge that feels as unreachable as the stars. In medieval Egypt, education is a man's domain, a privilege locked behind the walls of madrasas and mosques where scholars debate theology and scribble poetry. As a woman, you're expected to know just enough: prayers, household math, maybe a few verses, but anything more is suspicious. Like you're reaching for something that's not yours. You grip the stylus tighter, wishing you could write more than your name, wishing for a world where your curiosity isn't a crime. In the Fatimid era, Cairo was a hub of learning, home to Al-Azhar, one of the world's oldest universities. Historical records show men flocked to study Quran law and astronomy, but women you're rarely mentioned. The Cairo Janaza documents reveal some women learned to read and write, especially in wealthier families, but it was informal, taught at home if at all. Your education, if you're lucky, comes from your mother, or an aunt whispering verses or showing you how to tally grain. If you're poor, you're too busy weaving or fetching water to even dream of letters. You're somewhere in between, scraping for scraps of knowledge, your heart racing when you overhear a scholar's debate drifting from the street. You've got a secret, a tattered papyrus scrap, pilfered from your brother's lessons, covered in Arabic script you're trying to decode. It's slow work, your fingers smudging the ink as you sound out words under your breath. You hide it under a mat, knowing your father would frown, or worse if he caught you. Women who push too far risk being called unruly, their families shamed. But you can't help it. The world feels bigger when you trace those lines, like you're touching something beyond the courtyard's walls. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women use mnemonic songs to memorize Quranic verses, turning scripture into melodies to dodge the ban on formal study. You've tried it, humming a surah while you grind barley, the rhythm making the words stick. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread workaround or just a clever trick among a few, but it's your lifeline to learning. You sing softly, hoping no one overhears, because even this small act feels like rebellion. The barriers are steep. Boys go to kutab schools where they learn writing and arithmetic, while you're stuck learning recipes. If you're Muslim, you might memorize parts of the Quran, but only what's necessary for prayer. If you're Coptic, you might learn hymns, but reading the Bible is for priests and monks. Wealthy women sometimes hire tutors, but that's a pipe dream for you. Your family's coins go to dowries, not lessons. You've heard of rare women like Fatimid princesses who studied poetry or law, but they're as distant as Alexandria's lighthouse. You're just you, stealing moments to learn between chores. Let's lighten things up with a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian woman hide her papyrus? Because her brother thought reading was just fancy weaving. You've dodged his teasing, pretending your stylus is for mending, but you're burning to know more. You eavesdrop when your brother recites his lessons, catching fragments of history or math. You practice numbers by counting lentils, turning chores into a secret classroom. It's not much, but it's yours, and every new word feels like a victory. The courtyard's your only safe space to learn. You trace letters in the dust, erasing them before anyone notices. Sometimes, a neighbor's daughter joins you, her eyes wide as you teach her a letter or two. These moments are gold sisterhood disguised as play, but they're fleeting. Your mother calls you to the loom, and you stash your papyrus, your heart sinking. The world of scholarsmen debating in shaded mosques feels like another country. You've heard of women who became poets, like Walida bint al-Mustakfi in distant Spain. But here in Cairo, your words stay locked in your head. The restrictions sting. Men can study astronomy mapping stars you'll never chart. They read philosophy while you are scolded for asking too many questions. You've seen your brother's pride when he recites a poem and it burns. You could do that if given the chance. But society says no. And the weight of that no is heavier than your scarf. Still, you find ways to push back. You listen to market poets memorizing their verses. You quiz your brother, pretending it's a game, soaking up his answers. You're building a mind no one can take, even if it's in secret. As the sun sets, casting long shadows across the courtyard, you tuck your stylus away. The papyrus is hidden, but its words linger, a quiet fire in your chest. You're not a scholar, not yet, but you're learning one stolen moment at a time. The world may not see it, but you're writing your own story, dust and all. The dust settles, your secret letters erased, but the ache for knowledge fades into a new pressure as you hear your mother's voice urging you to prepare for motherhood. The world expects you to bear children, and soon the weight of that duty feels heavier than any loom or scarf. You're lying on a straw mat in your Cairo home, the night air thick with the scent of date palms and the distant ripple of the Nile. Your body aches from a day of weaving and fetching water, but your mind's tangled in a new kind of pressure motherhood. In medieval Egypt, being a woman means you're expected to bear children, lots of them preferably sons, and the weight of that expectation sits on your chest like a stack of clay pots. You're barely out of your teens, maybe newly married, and already the whispers are starting. When will you give your husband a son? You stare at the ceiling, the moonlight sneaking through a crack, wondering if you're ready for a role that could define or end you. Childbearing was a central pillar of life in the Fatimid era, with historical records like the Cairo Janitza showing that a woman's value was often tied to her fertility. You're not just expected to have children. You're expected to produce heirs, ideally male, to carry on the family name. The pressure's relentless, your mother-in-law's, sidelong glances, your husband's, quiet hope, the neighbors, nosy questions. If you're childless, the gossip's brutal. Is she barren, cursed? You've seen women shrink under that scrutiny, their worth reduced to a womb that hasn't delivered. You're not there yet, but the fear creeps in, especially when you hear about the risks. Pregnancy is no small thing. You've heard stories of births gone wrong, of women lost to fever or bleeding, and you know the odds aren't great. Medical care is basic midwives with herbs, and prayers may be a charm to ward off evil spirits. You're expected to trust in God and a handful of cumin seeds to get you through. A quirky tidbit. Some midwives used a paste of honey and fenugreek to ease labor pains, swearing it worked better than screaming. You're skeptical, but you'd try it if only to avoid the neighbors' pitying stares. Historians still argue whether these remedies were effective or just desperate hopes. But you're not taking chances. You've got that rosewater vial from prayers tucked away just in case it doubles as luck. If you're pregnant, your life shifts. You're still weaving, cooking, cleaning, but now you're carrying extra weight, both physical and social. Everyone has advice. Eat dates for strength. Avoid sour foods. Don't look at the moon too long. You roll your eyes, but follow along, because defying tradition invites trouble. Your husband might be kinder, bringing you extra bread, but he's also watching, hoping for a boy. Sons mean status. Daughters, while loved, are another dowry to worry about. You pray for health, not just for the baby, but for yourself, because childbirth is a gamble, and you've seen too many women lose. Let's lighten the mood with a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian mother-to-be hide her cravings? Because her mother-in-law would have made her eat pickled camel hooves for strength. You've dodged some weird advice yourself, sticking to lentils when you crave something sweeter. But the cravings are the easy part. The real challenge is the expectation to keep going, keep the house running, keep the family fed, all while your body changes and your energy fades. You're exhausted, but stopping isn't an option. You've seen your mother do this, your aunts, your neighbors, and you know it's your turn. If you do give birth, the celebrations, loud drums, sweets, women ululating like it's a wedding. A son brings pride, a daughter brings softer joy, but the work doesn't stop. You're up nights nursing soothing cries while still managing the loom and the oven. If you're lucky, your mother or a sister helps, but many women are on their own, juggling a baby in a household. You learn to tie the child to your back working with one hand while rocking with the other. It's a skill, like weaving or haggling, but it comes with no praise, just expectation. The risks don't end with birth. Children die young fevers, accidents, bad water, and every cough sends a jolt of fear through you. You've heard of women who lost 3, 4 babies, their grief a quiet shadow in their eyes. You clutch your child tighter, whispering prayers you learned in the mosque or church, hoping faith is enough. Society doesn't let you grieve openly. You're expected to try again to prove your worth. It's cruel, but you've learned to hide your pain just like you hide your coins or your papyrus scraps. Still, there's joy in motherhood, fleeting but real. You sing to your child the same mnemonic songs you use for Quran, verses weaving love into the notes. You teach them to toddle in the courtyard, their laughter a rare break from the grind. These moments are yours, even if the world demands you share them. Your son for your husband's pride, your daughter for another arranged marriage. You're not just raising children, you're raising the next generation of rules, and you wonder if you can bend them just a little for your daughter's sake. As dawn breaks, you're up your baby fussing in your arms. The pressure of motherhood never lifts, but you're learning its rhythm, finding strength in the small victories, a healthy child, a quiet moment. You're not just surviving. You're shaping a life even if the world doesn't see it. The baby's asleep and you steal a moment to breathe, but the world outside your courtyard doesn't pause. Beyond motherhood, another challenge looms: the law. A system stacked against you where your voice is worth half a man's if it's heard at all. You're standing in the courtyard of your Cairo home, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows as you clutch a small clay jar, your dowry's last coin hidden inside. The world outside hums with the clatter of merchants and the call to prayer, but you're bracing for a different kind of battle: the law. In medieval Egypt, the legal system is a labyrinth where your voice as a woman is barely a whisper, drowned out by rules that favor men at every turn. You've heard rumors of a dispute, maybe your husband's claiming more of your dowry, or a neighbor's contesting a debt, and you know, stepping into a courtroom means facing a system rigged to keep you small. Your heart's pounding, but you square your shoulders, ready to navigate a world where justice isn't blind. It's male. Under the Fatimid dynasty, Islamic law, or Sharia, governed most legal matters, with Coptic Christians following their own communal rules. Historical records, like those from the Cairo Geniza, show women could appear in court, sometimes, but their testimony carried half the weight of a man's if it was accepted at all. You're expected to stay home, letting your husband or father speak for you. But today, you've got no choice. Maybe it's about inheritance. Your brothers trying to claim your share of your father's land, or a divorce, a rare and risky move. Either way, you're walking into a space where the odds are stacked against you. You step into the Qadi's court, a dim room smelling of ink and old papyrus. The judge, a bearded man in a turban, barely glances your way. You're veiled, your voice low, but you feel exposed. Every word you say weighed against your gender. If you're claiming inheritance, the law's clear. A daughter gets half what a son does. You've seen your brother walk away with twice your share, his smug grin burning into you. Divorce is trickier. If your husband's cruel, you might petition for cool, giving up your dowry to walk away. But good luck proving cruelty to a judge who thinks a beating's just discipline. You've got to be strategic, choosing words like, you choose market lentils carefully, sparingly. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women slipped bribes dates, cloth, even a woven matto court scribes, hoping for a favorable word. You've considered it, tucking an extra coin in your jar. But it's a gamble. Historians still argue whether these bribes were common or just desperate acts by women, with no other leverage but you're tempted knowing one kind scribe could tip the scales. For now, you rely on your wit, speaking softly but clearly hoping the Qadi sees your truth even if the law doesn't. The courtroom's a man's world. Witnesses always menswear oaths, their voices booming, while yours is questioned. If you're testifying, you need 2 women to equal 1 man's word or rule that feels like a slap. You've heard of women hiring male proxies to speak for them, but you can afford that. You stand there, your scarf a shield reciting your case. Maybe your husband's withholding your maintenance, or a merchant cheated you on a cloth deal. The Qadi listens, but his eyes drift to the men. Their words carrying weight, yours never will. Let's lighten the mood with a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian woman bring a donkey to court? Because even it had a better chance of being heard. You've felt that silence yourself, your words fading against the men's chatter, but you're not helpless. You've learned to lean on reputation. Your families honor your piety to bolster your case. You mention your prayers, your charity, hoping the Qadi sees you as virtuous enough to listen to. It's a performance, and you're playing it well, even if it exhausts you. Outside the court, the stakes are higher. If you lose, you might lose your dowry, your home, or your children's future. Divorce is rare, but if you're widowed, you're in another bind. Remarriage means losing custody of your kids to your husband's family. You've seen women beg to keep their sons, their tears ignored by the law's cold logic. Inheritance is no better, your share's small, and if your father dies without a will, good luck getting anything. You've heard of women forging alliances with male relatives, promising them favors to secure a fair cut. You're considering it, whispering to your cousin, over tea, hoping hell back you. You find small ways to fight. You memorize your rights. Sharia grants you some like maintenance or a dowry's return, and you wield them like a hidden blade. You've heard of women who won cases by sheer persistence, showing up daily until the Qadi caved. You're not there yet, but you're learning, storing every legal scrap like you stored that papyrus for reading. The law may not love you, but you're carving out space, one careful word at a time. As you leave the court, the sun's dipping the Nile, glinting gold. You're tired, your jar lighter, but you've spoken, and that's something. The law's a wall, but you're finding cracks, learning to slip through without breaking. The court's behind you, but its weight lingers as you return to the courtyard where the clack of the loom calls you back to routine. Yet even here you're not alone. Other women, your sisters in struggle, weave their own quiet rebellions, and you're about to join their whispered network. You're huddled in the corner of your Cairo courtyard, the evening air soft with the scent of jasmine and cooling bread. The day's chores are done, looms, quiet pots scrubbed, and you're stealing a rare moment with other women. Your sister, a neighbor, maybe a cousin who slipped over the wall. You're whispering heads, close sharing stories that don't reach the men's ears. In medieval Egypt, these bonds, your sisterhood, are your lifeline, a hidden network where you trade secrets, laughter, and just enough rebellion to keep your spirit alive. The world outside may box you in, but here, in these stolen moments, you're free to be yourself, even if it's just for a breath. The Cairo Geniza records show women form tight-knit communities, often within families or neighborhoods, to support each other in a society that limited their power. You're not just chatting, you're building alliances. Your sister might slip you a coin when your husband's stingy. Your neighbor might watch your kids so you can sneak to the market. These networks are your safety net, woven from trust and necessity. You meet in courtyards, at wells, or during festivals where the men are too distracted to notice your hushed plans. It's not rebellion in the streets, it's quieter, smarter, and just as fierce. You lean closer, your voice barely above a whisper, sharing a trick you learned how to barter extra cloth without your husband knowing. Your neighbor laughs, her eyes glinting, and tells you about hiding a jar of oil from her nosy mother-in-law. These stories are currency traded as carefully as coins. You're all in the same boat, navigating husband's laws and endless chorizo. You share what works: a recipe for quick bread, a way to soothe a teething baby, even a prayer for patience when the world feels too heavy. These moments are your rebellion, a space where you're not just a wife or mother, but you. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women use knotted cords to pass secret messages, tying patterns to signal meeting times or warnings. You've tried it, looping a cord in your basket to tell your cousin when it's safe to gossip. Historians still argue whether this was common or just a clever trick among a few, but it feels like magic, a code no man can crack. You tie a knot now, grinning as your sister catches on her nod, saying, "Shall meet you at dusk." It's a small act, but it's yours, a thread of defiance in a world that wants you silent. These bonds aren't just for secrets, they're for survival. You've seen women rally when one's in trouble, a widow needing food, a mother sick after childbirth. You've joined them, slipping a loaf of bread to a neighbor whose husband left her penniless. It's risky, helping too openly could draw gossip, but you do it anyway. The men may rule the courts and mosques, but you rule these quiet exchanges, building a network stronger than any law. You've learned from your mother, who taught you to listen, to watch, to know when to speak and when to hush. She's your first ally, her stories your guide. Let's lighten the mood with a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian woman whisper at the well? Because even the water might snitch to her mother-in-law. You've dodged that yourself, keeping your voice low when you share a complaint about your husband snoring. But these gatherings aren't just for gripes. You swap dreams too, maybe of learning to read like that papyrus you hid, or of a day when your daughter might choose her own path. You know it's a long shot, but saying it out loud, even in a whisper, makes it feel possible. Sometimes these bonds stretch beyond the courtyard. You've heard of women meeting at bathhouses where steam and laughter loosen tongues. You've been there, scrubbing your skin with a rough stone, listening to tales of runaway brides or clever tricks to stretch a dowry. It's a rare escape, but even there, you're careful. Gossip can turn on you, and a wrong word could ruin you. You've learned to read faces, to know who's trustworthy, who's too eager to talk. Your sister's your safest bet, her loyalty proven through years of shared secrets and shared chores. The risks are real. If you're caught plotting, say hiding coins, or planning a market trip without permission, you could face a husband's wrath or a family shame. You've seen women ostracized for less, their names whispered like warnings, but you're careful, meeting only when the men are away, speaking in code like those knotted cords. You're not overthrowing the system, but you're bending it, finding cracks where you can breathe. These women, your allies, are your strength, their laughter a shield against the world's weight. As the stars peek through the courtyard, palms, you share one last story, how you slipped an extra coin from a cloth sale, just enough for a new scarf. Your neighbor laughs, promising to teach you her henna trick tomorrow. You feel lighter, like the Nile's breeze has swept away the day's burdens. These bonds, fragile but fierce, are your power, and you'll carry them into tomorrow's grind. The laughter fades, and you're alone again, folding your scarf as the courtyard grows quiet. But the day's not done. Your body's aching, and you're mixing a remedy from herbs and hope, because staying healthy in this world is another battle you can't afford to lose. You're crouched in the dim light of your Cairo courtyard, grinding dried mint leaves with a pestle, the sharp scent mixing with the evening's dust and the faint tang of the Nile. Your head throbs, your back aches from hours at the loom, and you're praying this paste will soothe the pain before tomorrow's chores. In medieval Egypt, staying healthy as a woman is a battle against heat, poor water, and remedies that sound like they belong in a witch's cauldron. You're no stranger to the struggle. Sickness lurks like a thief, and with no doctors on call, you rely on old wives, Tails herbs, and a whole lot of grit to keep going. The jar of mint paste is your weapon tonight, and you're hoping it's stronger than the fever creeping up your spine. Healthcare in the Fatimid era was a mix of tradition and trial and error, with the Cairo Geniza revealing that women often managed their own ailments using home remedies. Hospitals existed like the famous Bimaristan in Cairo, but they were mostly for men or the desperately ill. As a woman, you're expected to handle your health and your family, in the courtyard, with whatever you can scrounge. You've got herbs, maybe some honey, and advice from your mother, who swears by garlic for everything from colds to curses. The stakes are high. A sick woman means a household in chaos, and you've seen the judgment that follows. You smear the mint paste on your temples, wincing at the sting, but hoping it dulls the headache. Your neighbor swore it worked, and you trust Hirsch's, the one who taught you that knotted cord trick for secret messages. You're also sipping a tea of chamomile bitter, but calming brewed from market scraps. The water's a risk. Nile water can carry disease, but boiling it's your only defense. You've heard of women using amulets to ward off illness, tiny charms etched with prayers. You've got one tucked in your robe next to that rosewater vial from prayers, though you're not sure if it's faith or desperation keeping it there. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women applied a mix of crocodile dung and milk to treat skin infections, believing it drew out bad humors. You tried it once, gagging at the smell, and swore never again it's bad enough. Historians still argue whether this was a common remedy or just a bizarre footnote in medical texts, but it shows how far you'd go to stay healthy. You're not just fighting sickness, you're fighting a world that expects you to work through it, fever or not. A sick woman is a burden, and you've seen neighbors shunned for taking too long to recover. Childbirth is your biggest fear. You've heard the stories women lost to bleeding infections or fevers that no herb could cure. Midwives are your only help, their hands skilled, but their tools crude. You've helped one once, holding a friend's hand as she screamed, and the memory haunts you. You're not pregnant yet, or maybe you are, and the thought tightens your chest, but you know the risks. You've brewed fenugreek tea, like that labor remedy you heard about, hoping to store it for the future. Every ache makes you wonder if it's a sign, and you're praying to avoid the midwife's knife or the whispered prayers that mean things have gone wrong. Let's lighten the mood with a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian woman carry mint in her pocket? Because she didn't trust the Nile to smell as good as her tea. You've chuckled at worse remedies, like rubbing onions on your feet for a cold. But humor fades when you're coughing through the night, your kids needing you, your husband grumbling about dinner. You've learned to hide sickness working through fevers because stopping means falling behind. You dose your kids with honey for their coughs, praying it's enough, because losing them would break you in ways no herb can fix. The market's your pharmacy, but it's a gamble. You barter for herbs thyme fennel, maybe a rare pinch of saffron if you've got extra cloth to trade. Vendors promise cures, but half the time their miracle leaves are just weeds. You've learned to trust your nose sniffing for freshness and your neighbor's advice, which is better than any vendor's pitch. You also rely on rituals of prayer before drinking a charm tied to a child's wrist. Faith and medicine blur, and you're not sure where one ends and the other begins. The heat doesn't help. Cairo's summers are brutal, and you're sweating through your scarf, your body begging for rest you can't afford. You've heard of women fainting at the loom, their families blaming weakness instead of exhaustion. You're tougher than that, but you're not invincible. You drink water sparingly, knowing it might sicken you, and you dream of the bathhouse, where cool water and steam might ease your aches if only you had time to go. You're not alone in this. Your sisterhood, those women from the courtyard, share remedies like they share secrets. One tells you to chew fennel seeds for stomach pain. Another swears by a clay and herb poultice for cuts. You pass on your mint trick, earning a nod of respect. These exchanges are your strength, a network of knowledge no man can claim. As night falls, you rub the last of the paste on your neck, the coolness a small mercy. You're still standing, still fighting, and that a scout, the sickness you'll keep weaving tomorrow. The mint paste dulls the ache, and you sink onto your mat relieved, but weary, knowing tomorrow's tasks wait. Your body's health is one battle, but your appearance, how you present yourself in that heavy scarf and robe, is another, a daily performance where every choice carries weight. You're standing in your Cairo courtyard, the morning sun glinting off a small bronze mirror. As you adjust the folds of your linen robe, it's hem-frayed but clean. Your scarf, the same one you've wrestled with for years, is pinned just so a subtle act of defiance in how you've embroidered a tiny vine along its edge. In medieval Egypt, your appearance, your clothes, your jewelry, even the way you carry yourself is a performance, a delicate dance between modesty and self-expression. Every choice is scrutinized from the market to the mosque, and you're learning to wield your style like a quiet rebellion, carving out identity within the tight rules of a world that wants you covered and compliant. In the Fatimid era, clothing was a marker of status, faith, and gender, with Islamic and Coptic traditions dictating women's attire. The Cairo Geniza documents show women wore long robes and headscarves, often in plain linen or cotton, though the wealthy flaunted silk dyed with indigo or saffron. Your robe's simple, its brown weave practical for dust and heat. But you've added that vine embroidery, a secret flourish no one can fault. You're expected to look modest, loose garments covered hair. But you're also human, craving a touch of beauty in a life of endless chores. Your mirror's a luxury scavenged from a market deal, and you tilt it to catch your reflection, wondering if today's look will pass the neighborhood's silent judgment. You smooth your robe, feeling the weight of expectation. Modesty isn't just about covering up. It's about signaling virtue. A slipped scarf or a too bright color could spark gossip faster than a bad batch of bread. You've seen women shamed for less a hymn, too short, a laugh too loud, and you've learned to tread carefully. But you're not just hiding. You've got a pair of copper bangles, a gift from your mother, that clink softly when you move. They're not fancy, but they're yours, a reminder of who you are beyond the loom and the kitchen. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women dyed their hands with henna in intricate patterns, not just for weddings, but as everyday defiance, a way to claim their bodies within the rules. You've tried it, tracing swirls across your palms with a reed, the orange stain lasting days. Historians still argue whether this was purely decorative or a subtle protest against anonymity, but for you, it's both beauty and a quietum here. You hide your hands under your robe in the market, but in the courtyard, you flash them to your sister, who grins at your nerve. Your choices are limited by coin and custom. Silks for the rich, so you make do with linen, patching it when it tears. You've heard of women in the caliph's court, wearing veils embroidered with gold, but your budget's more barter for thread. You're skilled at stretching what you have, dyeing a scarf with onion skins for a soft yellow, or braiding your hair in a way that peeks out just enough to feel like you. The men don't notice, but other women do, and their nods are your reward, a silent applause for bending the rules without breaking them. Let's lighten the mood with a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian woman sew her own robe? Because the tailor thought modesty meant sack of potatoes. You've dodged that fate, tailoring your clothes to fit just right, loose enough for propriety, but shaped to move with you. You've learned tricks from your mother, a hidden seam to hide a coin, a knot to keep your scarf from slipping. These are your armor, as vital as that mint paste you rubbed on your temples last night. The market tests your appearance most. You step out, bangles, hidden scarf pinned tight, knowing every eye's a critic. Men judge your modesty. Women judge your style. You've seen a neighbor's bold red scarf spark whispers, and you're careful not to repeat her mistake. But you're not invisible. You choose colors that blend brown beige, but add that embroidered vine, a whisper of defiance. You walk with purpose, head low, but eyes sharp, catching the glint of another woman's henna or a flash of her own secret embroidery. These are your signals, your sisterhood's code, saying I see you. At home you can relax, but only slightly. Your mother-in-law's eagle eyes catch any slip-a stain on your robe, a loose pin, and her tongue's sharper than a market knife. You've learned to keep your clothes spotless, even after a day of grinding grain or chasing kids. You mend tears at night, your fingers aching, because a frayed hem is a frayed reputation. Still, you find joy in small acts, polishing your bangles with sand, or weaving a new belt with a pattern you dreamed up. These are your canvas, your way of saying, more than my chores. As the sun climbs, you slip on your sandals ready for the market. Your robes clean your scarves perfect, but that vine embroidery catches the light, a tiny rebellion no one can punish. You're not just dressed, you're declaring yourself one stitch at a time. The mirror's tucked away, and you're out the gate, your bangles clinking softly as you head to the market. But soon, the city's pulse shifts, drums echo, and laughter spills from the streets, signaling a festival where, for once, you might steal a moment of joy amid the rules. You're weaving through the crowded streets of Cairo, your scarf catching the breeze as the city hums with the electric buzz of a festival. Drums throb, children laugh, and the air smells of roasted chickpeas and sweet honey cakes. It's Eid al-Fitr, or maybe a Coptic festival like the Feast of the Cross, and for once, the rules loosen just a fraction. As a woman in medieval Egypt, these rare celebrations are your chance to step out to breathe, to steal a moment of joy in a world that keeps you on a tight leash. But even here, amid the music and color, you're navigating a minefield of judgment. Your every move watched by neighbors eager to gossip. You clutch your basket, your henna-stained hands hidden, and let the festival's energy pull you forward, if only for a day. Festivals in the Fatimid era were vibrant affairs, with historical records, describing streets packed with food stalls, musicians, and processions. The Cairo Janissa notes, women join these events often in segregated spaces, but your presence was always conditional. Modesty first, joy second. You're not here to dance or sing. That's for men, or the rare professional performer whose boldness you envy but don't dare mimic. Instead, you're with other women, maybe your sister or that neighbor who shared the mint remedy, weaving through the crowd to buy sweets or watch a juggler from a safe distance. The air's alive, and you want to soak it in, but you know one wrong step could tarnish your name. You pause at a stall, the vendor offering sticky pastries dusted with sesame. You barter for a few, using a coin from your secret stash, remember, that cloth sale you hid from your husband. Your scarf's pinned tight, but you've let a few braided strands peek out a tiny rebellion that feels bolder in the festival's light. The crowds, a mix of chaos and color men in bright turbans, children chasing kites, women in clusters, whispering behind their veils. You feel alive, almost free, but you keep your eyes sharp, dodging the stares of men who linger too long. A woman alone at a festival is a target, and you're not about to give the gossips fuel. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women wore anklets with tiny bells during festivals. Their jingle, a rare chance to be heard in a crowd. You've got a pair tucked under your robe, and their faint chime lifts your spirits as you walk. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread custom or just a playful flourish among the bold, but you love the sound, a secret song no one can silence. You sway slightly, letting the bells ring, and catch your sister's Grinches wearing hers too, your little pact of defiance. The festival's a rare break, but it's not freedom. You stick to the women's areas, often a roped-off corner, near the mosque, or a shaded alley, where you can watch without being watched. You've heard of women sneaking into the main square, blending into the crowd, but that's a risk you're not ready for. Instead, you savor the small joys. A bite of honey cake, the beat of a drum, a child's laughter as he chases a stray kite. You share a pastry with your neighbor, her eyes crinkling with a smile, and for a moment, you're not just a wife or mother, you're you alive in the city's pulse. Let's lighten the mood with a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian woman bring extra pastries to the festival? Because she knew the kids would steal hers faster than a falcon snatches a mouse. You've dodged those sticky fingers yourself, laughing as you hand over a sweet to a grinning niece. But the joy's fleeting. You're still under scrutiny, your mother-in-law's probably watching, ready to critique your scarf or your spending. You keep your movements modest, your laughter soft, knowing a loud giggle could brand you unseemly. It's exhausting, but you've learned to play the part, blending celebration with caution. These festivals are also where you see the world's edgestrators, from Damascus poets, from Baghdad, their stories sparking dreams you can't quite name. You listen hidden in the crowd as a storyteller spins a tale of far-off lands. You ache to join in, to ask questions, but you know your place. Instead, you share the story later with your sisterhood, over tea in the courtyard, turning it into your own. These moments, rare bright, remind you of the life beyond your loom, even if you can't touch it. The day wears on, and the festival's energy fades. You're tired, your sandals dusty, but your heart's full, if only for now. You slip back toward home, bells jingling softly, carrying a small sack of sweets and a memory of freedom. You've danced on the edge of the rules, and for today, that's enough. The festival's drums fade as you step back into your courtyard, the sweets tucked away for your kids. The brief taste of freedom lingers, but now you're thinking of the future, of the mark you might leave, however small, in a world that tries to erase you. You're sitting on a worn mat in your Cairo courtyard, the night air soft with the scent of cooling earth and the faint hum of the Nile in the distance. The stars above peek through the date palms, and you're tracing their patterns with your eyes, wondering if anyone will remember you, a woman in medieval Egypt, bound by rules but burning with quiet defiance. Your life's been a series of small battles, the looms, endless clack, the markets, judging, stares the weight of a scarf. That's both shield and chain. Yet in the shadows of history, you've left marks subtle but stubborn that no one can erase. You're not in the chronicles of caliphs or scholars, but your influence ripples through the lives you've touched, the stories you've whispered, the threads you've woven into the fabric of this world. The Fatimid era was a golden age of trade and culture, but historical records, like those from the Cairo Geniza, rarely name women like you. Men wrote the histories, poets, imams, merchants, but you were there shaping the everyday. You taught your children prayers, mended robes that clothed your family, bartered in the market to keep the household afloat. Your name might not be inked on papyrus, but your hands built the world the scribes took credit for. You think of that vine you embroidered on your scarf, that hidden pocket for coins, those knotted cords signaling secrets to your sisterhood. These are your legacy, small but fierce, etched in the lives around you. You lean back the mat, prickling your skin, and think of the women before you, your mother, her mother, their hands calloused from the same loom. They taught you to survive, to bend the rules without breaking them. You've done the same, passing tricks to your daughter, how to haggle without raising her voice, how to hide a coin from a greedy husband. These lessons aren't written in books, but they're written in you, in her and the women who'll come after. You've heard of rare women Sufi poets, Coptic nuns, who left louder marks, but your quiet work matters just as much. You're the backbone of this courtyard, this family, this city, even if no one says it. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women etch tiny symbols into their pottery, a secret signature no one but their sisters would notice. You've done it scratching a swirl into a clay jug, a mark that says, "I was here." Historians still argue whether these were common or just personal quirks, but you like to think they're everywhere, hidden in plain sight. Your jug sits in the corner now, holding water, its swirl catching the moonlight. It's not a monument, but it's yours, a whisper of your existence that might outlast you. Your influence isn't just in objects. You've shaped your children, teaching them resilience through stories and songs. Your son learns to respect women, even if the world tells him otherwise. Your daughter learns to hide her fire like you did until it's safe to burn. You've seen your sisterhood, those women from the courtyard, carry your tricks forward, sharing your mint remedy or henna patterns. These bonds are your legacy too. A network of strength that holds up half the sky, even if the scrolls don't mention it. Let's lighten the mood with a joke. Why did the medieval Egyptian woman hide her best jug? Because she didn't want her mother-in-law claiming it as family property. You've laughed at that one, tucking your treasures away from prying eyes. But the real treasure is your impact on your kids, your neighbors, the women who'll weave and whisper after you're gone. You've bent the rules, like slipping that extra coin from a cloth sale or singing Quranic verses to learn them. These acts ripple, teaching others they can bend too. The world may forget you, but you're not invisible. You've bartered in the market, prayed behind mosque screens, worn your defiance in embroidered vines. You've survived childbirth, outsmarted the law's limits, and found joy in festival drums. Historians might overlook you, but the women around you, don't they carry your stories, your remedies, your courage? You're not a queen or a scholar, but you're a force shaping a world that doesn't know how to thank you. As the night deepens, you feel the weight of your life, not just the chores, but the meaning you've carved from them. You're tired, but you're proud. Your legacy isn't loud, but it's lasting, woven into the lives you've touched, the threads you've spun. You close your eyes, the Niles murmur a lullaby, and let the stars hold your story for now. The courtyard grows quieter, the air cooler as the Nile's gentle ripple fades into a soothing hum. You're still here on your mat, the stars softer now, their light a gentle blanket over your tired limbs. Your life, its struggles, its small victories, settles around you like dust after a long day. The looms silent the markets far away, and the rules that bound you feel lighter, if only for this moment. You've woven a life from scraps of freedom, from whispered secrets and hidden stitches, and that's enough. Your children sleep nearby their breaths, steady carrying your lessons into tomorrow. The women of your sisterhood, your allies in the courtyard, dream under the same sky, their strength entwined with yours. The world may not know your name, but it feels your touch in every loaf baked, every prayer, whispered every vine, embroidered in defiance. Let the night take you now, soft and slow, as the stars fade and the Nile sings you to rest. Sleep deeply, knowing you've left a mark quiet but unbreakable on a world that's better for it.